Are the Vols putting too much into 2024? And Caleb, I asked this question. You know I love you like a brother. I'm an only child, so I don't know what that feels like. That doesn't mean a lot. So, but I do love you like a brother. But you said something recently that I think borderlines on crazy Caleb conspiracy theory. This load up for 2024 that you keep throwing at me, that this is the year. If it's not this year, it's not going to happen. I think Tennessee is building a program where they're going to knock on the door continually. So I don't believe they're a load up program. But you think they're a load up program for 2024, maybe make a run like Clemson did a couple of times, or maybe TCU makes a run into the playoffs, or Cincinnati makes a run into the playoffs, but you don't think they can knock on that door perennially? Why?
No, I never said they can't knock on that door perennially.
I
said they're loading up. They loaded up for 2024 to make that the launching pad for Josh Heupel to be able to consistently get top 5 classes after that with the credibility he'll have of winning a national championship in 2024. And so, in case you forgot, I don't know where this whole Clemson good for a couple of years thing came from. Clemson went to the college football playoff every year from 2015 to 2020 and won 2 national titles in 4 years. Who's not taking that?
They're a little better than a little good. How about that?
I mean, Clemson's run was just as good as Georgia's run has been under Kirby Smart. It's exactly the same.
Yeah.
So no one would say good for a couple of years with Georgia. So loading up for 2024 is the launching pad for a run, whether that be 6 years, 8 years, 10 years. I mean, heck, Florida was only good for a couple of years with Urban Meyer. I bet they'll take those couple of years. So again, like when I say loading up for 2024, yeah, I'm not saying Tennessee will have an Alabama type run. So what? Who does? Like, no one ever has an Alabama type run except Alabama with 2 head coaches and Nick Saban and Bear Bryant. If you want that, you shoot for that, fine, but don't be disappointed if you don't get that. If you get a couple of national titles, you get a couple of national titles. And I think it all came down to Josh Heupel saw the roster, he saw the setup, he saw what was going on with 2024, and he made every decision meticulously with 2024 in mind, including finding ways to kick the new quarterbacks to the curb that he inherited in 2021, except for Hendon Hooker. Even things like when he went after Joe Milton. Dave, why did he go after Joe Milton? He meticulously looked at the class Milton's in, and he was thinking, okay, I want my quarterback, my handpicked quarterback out of high school, ready to go in 2024. So I want all these other quarterbacks out of eligibility by then. Heupel said yesterday some speed bumps on the way, quote unquote speed bumps. I felt that maybe was a self-admission that he didn't pick the right quarterback to transition to Nico, but he also talked about speed bumps on just things that he inherited. It's very
normally on that last thing that you said, I would play my favorite drop, which is
that's crazy.
But as I was driving into the studio, you said that this morning in our 3:45 a.m. production meeting. You said that. I think you're right. I think they thought Joe Milton was going to be significantly better. And oops.
Yes, exactly.
I do. And I think even coming back last year, and I'm not going down the Joe Milton train because I get accused of ripping him all the time, which I don't do. Please hit the like and subscribe button if you don't mind. But I get the feeling that was the speed bump. I don't think there were a bunch of little speed bumps. I think there was one big, massive train trestle that you had to cross.
Yes, that they put in front of themselves.
Right, that they put in front of they lowered the train gate on themselves so they could sit there for a while. I don't want to be the I rip Joe Milton guy. Please, guys, tell me if I am. But I swear I think Caleb's right. I think that's what he's referring to. And when he first said it this morning, I thought it was crazy. I was ready to play the drop. But it's not. It's a hey now. You nailed it. You nailed it.
Yeah. Like the other speed bump that fell on him that wasn't Jeremy Pruitt's fault was I don't think he anticipated the injuries he had last year. Those couple of things. But Joe Milton, yeah. Those were the speed bumps. They're very clearly.
Was he saying, no, let me ask you this. Was he saying that the speed bump was I didn't have another quarterback ready? Or I thought that Joe was the guy and he wasn't ready?
I think the speed bump was he thought Joe was the guy and he wasn't. I think that was the major speed bump they put in front of themselves. Now,
Gaston does indeed have a better year last year, Devin. You're right. I brought that up. A couple media members yesterday. They looked at me like I was crazy, and I was like, "Wow."
Yeah, I think you're on track for that.
Okay. Well, then, okay, everybody thinks that, but I think he would have had as good of a year. I think they would have run short slants, quick slants, other stuff. But anyway, let's move on. Tim Banks says it's the deepest defense he's had, or is Tennessee loading up too much for 2024?
Yeah, this is where and we're going to talk about what the other people have said. This is very top down for Josh Heupel at this point, which is he's clearly put the pressure on everybody in the room to say, hey, this is our year, guys. Tim Banks volunteering that information. He's repeating things Josh Heupel was saying at SEC Media Days. I think it's filtering to the coaches and the players to expect this is our year. And I don't know if it's only a problem of loading up too much if the players aren't mentally tough enough to respond to it. Because I will say this, they're putting a lot of pressure on themselves. It kind of reminds me of, Dave, before you were covering Tennessee, you remember Peyton's junior year, right? Where Peyton comes back, Tennessee was 11-1. They'd finished number 3. Peyton's coming back as a junior, Joey Kent's a senior. And everybody said, this is Tennessee's year. That's their year. And I think the pressure led to them falling behind 35-0 against Florida at home. Do you remember that? Didn't it just feel like the pressure they melted from it all in that first 20 minutes?
Yes. Does Tennessee have to load up for a 2024 another season, or will they be relevant for 10 years? Now, intrinsically, Tennessee is the type of program without a strong recruiting base, Caleb, where they have to be that load-up team, intrinsically. But I think Philip Fulmer proved and General Neyland proved that you can continue to knock on the door. Tennessee was knocking on the door in 2001. Tennessee was knocking on the door in 99. That was the Memphis game, correct? I mean, if the Memphis game doesn't happen, they're in, at least they're knocking on the door. I'm not talking.
No, that was 96. 96 was the Memphis game.
96, excuse me. So they're knocking on the door with Peyton Manning. And the point is they end up with a couple of championships, one in 98, a national title, and 2 SEC titles in 98 or 99. So there's nothing to be ashamed of for that. And they win the East in 2001. Nobody, I think, would turn down that title. Would you? Now, the other option is be relevant, not lame. That's my option. Does Tennessee have to load up for a season, or will they be relevant for 10 years? I think, and I'm changing my tune, Caleb. This is in the past 3 days with what they've done in recruiting. Now, I don't want to harp on recruiting too much. Everybody's like, oh, Dave covered recruiting. He thinks it's the most important. Well, that's because it is the most important thing in college football, period. So I've changed my tune in 3 years. I think they're building a dynasty that will knock on the door. I'm not saying they're going to win it 7 times like Saban, but they're going to knock on the door every single year. And it's not a load of, oh, we got this special guy named Nico, and he's really, we got this special guy named George, and he was born in state, so he got a natural in. So let's all put this together. And, this James Pierce turned out to him. He's better than ever. Let's load up for this year. This is the year. We'll see what happens in 2025. I don't think they're built like that. I think that a coach like Butch Jones, several other coaches built programs like that so that they could get another job. I think clearly Josh Heupel loves the University of Tennessee, and he's going to stay here. So I think he wants to build a long-term relevant program.
But I think he loaded up for Tennessee for 2024 to launch in a 10-year run. He is recruiting well right now. But, Dave, if Tennessee goes 8-4 this year, you know you're going to see a wave of decommitments, right, from this class. You just will. And so I've covered teams that had that. Butch Jones had a top 5 class in 2017. He was favored to win the East in 2016. The second he lost his 3rd game in 2016, the decommits and the transfers started. And the program was never going to recover after that. So it's
okay. I want to say one thing. I'm around coaches a lot, and I don't think they lead up as often as you think for the load up year. However, don't think for a second that a coach doesn't go down a schedule and say, Chattanooga, that's a win. NC State, that's a win. Alabama, that's a swing game. They do all of that stuff that we do too. They do the exact same thing. I've been with coaches while they've done that. Okay, they've gone through. That's going to be a toughie, and blah, blah, blah. So I don't think that Josh Heupel is thinking this is my shot. But I do think there's some load up factor. There's a little bit. And here's the strongest factor to your point. If you're not loading up for this year, you don't pay an Omari or a Cooper to come back for another year. You take your chances with another group of dudes, right?
That's very true. You are. That's why I was saying he's loading up for this year, because he was focused on keeping all of those guys that he could get. And
because I guarantee you that cash spent cost him a 4 or 5 star on the trail.
Oh,
I'd
definitely.
rather have a proven starter, but there's another guy out there that would have taken a $5 million check to come to Tennessee, and that would have been maybe the number 1 pick or the number 1 overall prospect in the nation. I don't even know where that guy went or who he is. You could have done that. You could have kept building this NIL excitement and not taking care of Cooper and not taking care of Omari, and they go to the NFL. You could have done that.
Well, here's where it gets even bigger. So, see, this is where I'm breaking with you. The greatest coach in history loaded up twice. Nick Saban at Michigan State loaded up for that 99 year where they went 9-2 so he could get another job, and it worked. And at LSU, he loaded up for 2003. Go back and look at exactly how he built LSU up until that point. The first thing Nick Saban did when he went to LSU was he took Matt Malk, who was committed to him at Michigan State, took him with him to LSU. He was building for 2003 with his recruiting classes and what he was doing. And he was saying, this is my year.
See, to me, and Caleb, maybe we're different here. There's a negative connotation to loading up. Like, loading up for a year makes me think that you don't have the long term in mind. So maybe you think that's a perfectly neutral or positive connotation. What's your stand? I mean, to me, loading up, I see it in high school all the time. I got a lot of high school coaches friends, and I see it all the time. They're like, this is the year that I can really win and get a better job. I mean, I don't think that Josh Heupel is thinking in that regard at all.
Well, okay, you're thinking loading up like the way the Marlins won the 97 World Series.
Yes. Whereas, okay, the Yankees, they spend too much money. But the Yankees are always trying to win it every year. I don't think – I mean, to me, Virginia Tech is a better example than Clemson of a program that was trying to load up and win it with Mike Vick. I don't think Tennessee is going to be that type of program where they fall off the map after Nico's gone.
No, but here's where I think they're loading up, and this is what I mean with loading up. They're not saying –
This is, by the way, my favorite conversation I think we've ever had. Go ahead. And I want to hear you from the message board, too. I want to hear you from the message board.
They're not throwing away the future. Here's how they're loading up. If they got some NIL cash and they say – or they have a scholarship available, they're like, I'd rather have this good player for 2024 than shoot for this 5-star for 2025. That's how Josh Heupel is loading up. He's prioritizing it. Think of the NFL, it's basically saying, I'm going to take my chances with this known commodity at quarterback and put a team around him rather than go for the risk of this number 1 pick next year and see if I can build a future.
Can I ask you something crazy?
Sure.
So they're loading up in what ways? They're loading up with a $2 million quarterback 2 years ago or 3 years ago when he committed, right?
Yep.
That's a load up.
That's a load up.
That's as big of a load up as they go. That's keep shoveling onto the cart. Don't worry if the mule's blind. All right. So that's a load up. The other load up, which made a lot more sense, is keeping Cooper and keeping Omari Thomas. You will one day get that fixed. I haven't done that in like 8 months. Okay. I was keeping track of that one. Would Tennessee be better off with Nico this season or Cooper and Thomas? I tell you what, we're going to tease that through a break. I got Caleb thinking. I want to tell you about my good buddy, Don Self, State Farm. Customer service still matters. For 40 years, they built their business on taking care of their customers in the greater Chattanooga area. Call 423-396-2126 or go to donself.net, right below donself.net, and he'll push you towards the right State Farm agent if he's not the guy. He's in the Chattanooga and Ottawa area. So you're loading up, but you're Josh Heupel. You're sitting at your desk, and somebody and Russ Tastic. Yes, I'm saying Tennessee is loading up for a dynasty, and I think they're going to be knocking at the door. But some people think they're just loading up for this particular season.
But this is the launching pad,
right? And I know I'm painting you in the corner a little bit, but sometimes I get an impression like you'd be okay with Tennessee playing for an SEC title and falling apart next year as long as they showed a major improvement. I may be putting words in your mouth.
No.
But, okay, no. That's not the case.
I'm saying they are loading up for this year to be the launching pad, where then they will be relevant and year in and year out thinking about a national title for, I don't know, 6, 7, I don't know, however long Josh Heupel is here, like, or in Knoxville. Like, but if I say 6, 7, 8 years, like, again, that's the Clemson way. And people think like that's all. I don't know why everybody acts like it's so demeaning to do the Clemson way. Clemson's got 2 national titles in the last decade. Only 2 other programs have that. Spoiler alert, only 2 other programs have multiple national titles in the last decade. Clemson's one of them. This idea that, like, it's a failure unless you do, like, 4 national titles over a 20-year span. Dave, you don't think every Tennessee fan in the world would take 2 national titles in 6 years?
Yes. Caleb, I think you're sidestepping the question I asked earlier.
Oh, okay.
Okay, right. So here it is.
Say wow.
All right, it is this. Would you rather have Nico headed into the season, or would you rather have Omari Thomas and Cooper Mace?
Say wow.
Okay. This is the hardest thing I'm ever going to have to answer.
By the way, latest on the poll question, does Tennessee have to load up for 2024, another season, or will they be relevant for 10 years? Load up for a title, 43% of the vote. Be relevant, not lane. Okay, what do you got?
If it were any other good quarterback, I would say Cooper and Amari. Because I think being a good quarterback in Heupel's system is a dime a dozen, because he can make a lot of quarterbacks. It's like if it were Hendon Hooker, I would say give me Cooper Mace and Amari. Nico Iamaleava is the one rare exception. I wouldn't trade Nico Iamaleava playing for Josh Heupel for any player in college football history.
Not even a guy like Dylan Gabriel that's proved he can run a similar type of system.
I would take Nico Iamaleava playing for Josh Heupel over having Herschel Walker at Georgia in 1980. Over having Bo Jackson at Auburn in 85 or 86. Over having, we talked about this yesterday with John, over having Peyton Manning with David Cutcliffe in the 90s. I would take over having Johnny Manziel with Kevin Sumlin, or over having Tommy Frazier with Nebraska. I'm telling you, I would take, there is not Nico the player by himself, but Nico Iamaleava playing under Josh Heupel, there is not a player I would take over him in the history of college football.
Okay. And so for the record, you're going to take Nico over Cooper Mays and Omari Thomas.
I would take Nico under Josh Heupel over Cam Newton in college. Over Michael Vick at Virginia Tech.
I'm going to say Cooper would undermine Nico. Everybody seems to be Nico on the message board, and you can vote on our YouTube page, Nico, or you get to choose from Omari and Cooper Mace.